Country Club of Jackson's the place to be in the PGA Tour this week. Sanderson Farms Championship being played in Mississippi. Mac Hughes coming off an emotional week at the President's Cup. Can he really have some magic this week at a place he's already won? And Rickie Fowler, his first start on tour since way back in July. What do we expect from Rickie? We're here to make picks and help you along the way on the roundtable. Guys, it's been a while. You were both in Canada. I've been here in the U.S., and we are ready to make some picks, Benny B.
Ready to go. I looked at what Mac Hughes was there doing on the first tee at the President's Cup. I expect he's done plenty of that in the last 24 hours as well. So not on my radar this week, although he's clearly one of the better players in the field.
I'm just surprised that Ben made it through customs in Montreal without actually turning into poutine, given how much he took down last week. We had a good time north of the border. It was a fun week to be up there. But listen, no rest for the weary. We're on to Mississippi.
I heard poutine was all the rage. I clearly need to try it now. So we mentioned Mac Hughes, and I just want to gauge some, interest in this board because, you guys, we don't have a favorite, period. I mean, we have nobody under plus 2,200. We don't have these massive stars who are plus 300 and the next guy's plus 500. I mean, Will, what do you make of a board where literally anybody can win?
I think the odds makers are trying to tell you just that this thing is really wide open. We're used to so many tournaments. You think back to other events of the PGA Tour, you might have multiple guys under 1,000. Maybe you get one where, the favorite's in that 14 or 15 to 1 range. Now here we are. Everyone's north of plus 2,000, and you got three guys there at plus 2,200, including Mac Hughes. I think it shows that this time of year with this particular venue, it can be tough to figure out who's going to strike it quick, as we saw a couple weeks ago with Patton Kizzire out in Napa, and he kind of just steamrolled his way to a really easy victory. There are some traits that we can look to in terms of strokes gained trends. We can look to recent winners in Mississippi to show what maybe kind of player to look for. But at the end of the day, this one's definitely much more wide open than maybe some of the PGA Tour events we've seen otherwise this season. When still, Chris, we saw plenty of 300, 400, 501 long shots, even in events that we thought we might have an idea of who was supposed to play well.
I love it because you can take down your unit and you can spread it across the board. Any guy you might have some sort of connection with, an emotional attachment, or maybe you're looking at the data like I have this week to try to make your pick, whatever it is, you can sort of spread your wealth across the board and root on quite a few guys without sort of outlaying a lot to get nothing back. It's kind of fun that we have this on board coming up this week.
We've got Benny's data to look forward to on this show. All jokes aside, on a literal hangover or a mental hangover from Mackenzie Hughes this week, take that out of it. Is it too much to ask a guy who might be the best player in this field? He's the only President's Cup player in this field, Will. Is it too much to ask to bet Mackenzie Hughes anywhere on a board that's actually worth it this week?
There are reasons, certainly, to look in Hughes' direction. The most notable being he's a former champion, right? He won here just a couple years ago at the Sanderson Farms, so it's a course that he has an affinity for. His other PGA Tour win came at the RSM Classic over in Sea Island, so there might be something about playing in the fall in the Southeast that sits well with the Canadian who did go to school in the U.S. up at Kent State. So on paper, there's reasons to like him. But I'm with you. I'm looking more at the intangibles. This is going to be a bit of a letdown opportunity. If you think about it in terms of football parlance, he let it all out last week. He and Corey Connors and Taylor Pendrith, those Canadian guys, did everything they could to get the international team to a victory at Royal Montreal. He played 4 of 5 matches, whereas Connors and Pendrith did play all 5. But I think that there are going to be questions for me about how much energy he's going to have hitting the first tee on Thursday. Now, on the flip side of that, if he's in the mix after the first 2 rounds, let's say, I do have more faith in him coming down the stretch on the weekend than I might other people in a similar spot on the board. So maybe there's some live betting or in-play opportunities there. But I think there's a really good chance that he comes out and gets caught a little flat-footed over this first 9, 18, maybe 27 holes this week.
So it's day 1 boom or bust.
No, we just
day 1 into day 2. Yeah.
Stay away from him pre-tournament. Watch what he does day 1 and potentially even day 2, like Will said, before you decide whether you want to get on the Mac Hughes train. It's not so much, as I said, just the celebrations or commiserations that they would have had the last few days. It's the energy he needed for the whole week, the energy he put up trying to help his team there in his home country. And don't get me wrong, Will, I'm a fan of the fact that I expect to see, of those 24 guys that played last week, I expect to see them in the winner's circle in the next 2 or 3 months. It's been proven from after 19, after 22, that players do win after they get a juice or a buzz from being in the President's Cup, being around that team environment and getting some confidence in their game. I just think it's really hard to suggest that Mac Hughes can do it right away, given it was his hometown President's Cup. If he is in the mix, like Will said, then decide and maybe jump on later in the piece.
If we're looking at round
yeah,
one,
I definitely agree with that. Sorry, Chris. I was just going to say, when we talked about those trends, and it was part of Ben's column kind of recapping the week at the President's Cup, there is something to be said for buying in on the guys that played at Royal Montreal and having some success in the coming weeks and months heading into early 25. It's just a quick turnaround. I don't know if I'm ready to buy in on Mac Hughes as a pre-tournament favorite 48 hours later.
So if we're going to go ahead and assume round one and round two are pivotal for Mac Hughes, is it the same for Rickie Fowler? Because I feel like it is, Ben. And this is a guy who has not played since the Open. We know he and his wife had another baby. Congratulations to them. That's the reason why he hasn't been playing. He's got a lot to prove this fall. Is that a safe to say statement?
Definitely safe to say. I mean, I sat there and went down the board and I saw his name so far down. I just automatically had that temptation to maybe put him in as a long shot. But as you said, the fact is he hasn't played for a long time, and he hasn't been playing that well either. He's definitely the version of, what did we have last year? Justin Thomas maybe, or that might be a Max Homer, but a guy that's off the map a little bit. We've expected big things. We've seen big things in his career, and it's starting to fade. Are we going to see Rickie Fowler ever make a true comeback? Is he going to be able to do like Jason Day did the last 2 years and come back from where he was? I'm not sure yet, and I need to see something in the fall here from him to suggest that A, he has the game for it, but B, has he got the hunger for it? That's what I'm looking for.
Technically, he did it last year. He won last year.
Yeah, I know.
Is he going to continue?
Again, but it's a win that then didn't turn into anything. Other guys that won turned it into stuff, right? Like Rickie just hasn't been able to really get that consistent performance that we're used to seeing from him, being up one of the top players. As I said, I'm staying away from him in the betting markets until I sense if there's a real actual hunger from him to be out there week to week.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that, when it comes to Fowler, that I look at when you go back to last year's win in Detroit, first of all, that it comes with a 2-year exemption, right? So there's not a ton of urgency for him heading into 25 in terms of status. He's still going to be in a lot of events, not the signatures per se as of yet, but in terms of the full field events, he's in good shape. His job is not at risk. But I think I was at that tournament last year up in Michigan, and he was playing really well going into that. He was a betting favorite at that event pre-tournament. So that kind of just shows you he's not a guy in recent years that has necessarily just spiked an event out of nowhere. He needed to trend for a couple weeks into that win in Detroit. And so that's where I certainly have some pause, because as Ben said, he's been, having a tough time for pretty much the entirety of his, 14, 15 months since leaving the Rocket Mortgage Classic with a win and the trophy last summer. So I still think that there are some questions for him to answer. And I think that this is maybe if he makes a couple starts in the fall, this is a chance for him to kick the rust off, get back into playing shape, as you said, after he and his wife welcomed their second child. We're all fathers here. We know the juggling of multiple second kids. It is not it's a variable. It's a thing to consider. So I think that as he heads into 25, he's looking for that spark. He's looking for something to build off of. Maybe it comes this week. Maybe it comes at another event in the fall. And don't forget, the Aon Swing 10 in the next 5 of being able to turn a win or even a top 2 or 3 finish at a couple of these fall events. Now all of a sudden you are in the signature events. You're playing at Riviera. You're playing at Pebble Beach next year. And those are certainly stages that Rickie Fowler envisions him getting back to in short order.
If the signs are not there that he's making a comeback this fall, I think we should be concerned. Ben, concerned if there's no sign of any kind of life in the next 2 months?
Yeah, as I said, I want to see hunger. I want to see him keen to be back there. Look, we'll just mention it. New father again. Priorities change. Things in your life become a bigger deal than other parts, and we just need to know that he wants to be a consistent performer on the tour. He's always going to have the game inside there to unlock one out of every now and then. But again, will he win in those weeks? I'm not sure. It's like Will said, when he won last, it's because he built up to it. We need to see him build up to something. He hasn't necessarily been one of those out-of-the-box guys. This tournament has seen that. Like we saw, I don't think Luke List was on anyone's radar last year out of nowhere, given how bad he was playing going in, and managed to to win that. So, if you want to use that as an omen, maybe Rickie Fowler can pull something out of the fire. But again, for me, it's just I want to see attitude. I want to see how he's going and go from there.
I think, Chris, it also depends on where your ceiling is, right? I mean, Rickie Fowler is not a spring chicken. He's going to turn 36 later this year. So you have to keep that in mind of where are you thinking he might get back to. For me, is he going to get back to the guy that was in a top 5 in all 4 majors in 2014? Is it the guy that won the Players Championship in 2015? I have a hard time seeing him getting back to those heights. But in terms of a player that can contend week in, week out, maybe spike a win every 2 or 3 years, get in and play those signature events year in and year out, I think that's within reach as he looks to kind of have a bit of a surge here in the middle of his career.
Some people don't want to hear it, but child 1, child 2, child 22, it's going to get in your way, especially when you get older and older, and all these guys are crazy good in their mid-20s. Okay, boys, picks time, Benny. I had to find some Matt McCarty video because he's not a tour guy, but he's an up-and-comer, and you love him.
He's about to be a tour guy. Don't worry about that. Smashing it on the KFT. What, 3 wins, Will? Just absolutely killing it down there. He's going to be up on the PGA Tour very, very soon or for next year through that system. He's just in winning form. Like, he's a guy that's been playing very well through. I know it's a level down, but winning form is winning form. And being able to close when you have the opportunity is big. I don't think he's going to be afraid of moving up this week and playing the Sanderson Farms. And I think you get some decent juice there at plus 350. I mean, legit, we could be talking about this guy winning the thing. It's not that far out of the realms of possibility. So with all those wins and with that confidence, and also just, again, knowing he's already secure next year. It's there. He can just go out here and play and use that winning form that he's got. I think you got to keep an eye on this guy. He's going to be big. I'm not necessarily saying he's going to be huge, but he's going to be decent PGA Tour player, and I think it kickstarts this week.
Yeah, he's locked up number 1 on the Korn Ferry Tour. This is a pick that I'm sure will warm our colleague Kevin Price's heart. He's in the Players next year. He's in the U.S. Open. It's really a free roll for him this summer after that third win of, listen, all he's playing for is a win and trying to get into contention, trying to build in towards 2025.
Matt McCarty's a big name across anybody you ask. The big name here at Golfbet, it's Mac Meissner. You both have him in different markets. Will, let's start with yours.
Don't act so surprised, Chris. Mac Meissner, a household name. He's someone that should be on your radar every week. Listen, this is a pick for me that I look at where Mac Meissner has had success. I like him at plus 400 for a top 10. He's been inside the top 10 at a couple of difficult courses in terms of TPC San Antonio and Colonial earlier this year. And so, looking at Country Club of Jackson and what it demands, for me, I'm looking at ball strikers. This is a big-time tee to green course. I think of Sam Burns, a recent winner, as kind of your prototypical Sanderson Farms champion or a player that's really going to be able to play well. You have to be able to keep it in play, give yourself some birdie opportunities, and then you hope to figure it out on the green. So I'm not sure that I'm going to be as bold as our Australian friend here, but in terms of projecting how well Meissner will do this week, but I do think that he has a good chance at this number to get in the mix.
Well, I have him as a long shot, right?
Yeah, long shot for anything.
Yeah.
Top 5, top 10, make the cut.
Yeah, you can see there, look, have a look there. He's got 3 starts in his last 5 inside the top 16. So there's a top 20 option straight away if you want to look at that, or a top 10 option. And I do think he's got a potential win option because in the field over the last 5 appearances for these guys, he's I think the 4th best in strokes gained total. So not only has he been doing okay, but he's also been hitting it very well, like Will suggested. And so I think there, again, going to the data, trying to look at guys, you're looking for somewhere where you might be able to put, you throw your dart and it lands on a player. This is a guy that's actually got some meat behind what he's been doing of late. And as a long shot, I think that's great.
If there's one thing about the fall we know, guys, it's uncertainty. We're not sure who's going to play well after a very long season in 2024. To me, Seamus Power, though a veteran, call him an older guy in this field, he has been somewhat consistent. I say somewhat compared to some of these guys who are higher on the board. So when I look at him for a top 10 at plus 225, I look at the fact that he hasn't missed a cut since the U.S. Open when he did miss a cut, okay? Has made everyone since then. And his last event on tour, the FedEx Cup St. Jude's against elite field, no better field than that in a playoff event. The guy finishes T10. So I feel like Seamus Power, as long as he hasn't had any rust, we have no idea what his game and prep has been like for a guy who's in his, mid-30s, late 30s, Will. I'm curious if he can start out well. I love him for a top 10.
Yeah, we saw Seamus Power's name on that initial graphic that you showed of all the top 5 betting favorites. And there's a theme there where those guys are players that have won before on the PGA Tour. Seamus Power has 2 wins, including a fall win a couple years ago at Bermuda. So he has some history with this part of the season and in playing well. And I don't think that he's someone that we'd be totally shocked to see lift the trophy, or certainly, as you're saying, be in the mix come Sunday.
Let me tell you this, Chris. Again, it was one of the games that did pop a little bit on my data. It's weird to know, but like Sanderson Farms, this championship has seen the guys who win it finish inside the top 15 of strokes gained putting almost every year. And the one where they didn't, it was Sam Burns, who's usually known as a great putter, and he just happened to have a good ball striking week that week. On this course in the last 5 seasons, I think Seamus Power is gaining more strokes putting than maybe most of the field. I think he was 4th or 5th as well. So he obviously figured out these greens. If he can continue that, he's a chance to cash your top 10 bet.
I'm glad you guys bring up this course because my long shot is strictly off of course history, and I want your guys' thoughts on if course history matters. Because Henrik Norlander, we know, the 5-man playoff, he was in it last year, didn't win, obviously. This is a guy who has 3 top 4s here in his past 4 years. 2 tied for 4th, back-to-back years, a couple of years ago. That's my long shot. That's all I needed to see. He's been okay enough on tour this year. Will, what's your thought on guys who have played this course well, but looking at the recent performances, I know he has a T12 and a T11, but he hasn't really been a name that's popped out to anybody the last 3 months.
Shout out to our friend Mike Glasgow, who pulled this nugget that Henrik Norlander is the only player in tour history to lose 2 different 5-man playoffs. He also was in the 5-man playoff that Mackenzie Hughes won at the RSM a couple years back.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm willing to side much more on course history than recent form at these sort of events where it's more wide open. It's a bit of a crapshoot, and I do lend some credence to the notion of guys that are going to show up, and I know that they like the course, and I know that they feel comfortable in this locker room, and I know that they're not going to get overly discouraged if they play 2 over through the first 6 or 7 holes and maybe have a chance to battle back. So all that to say, I have no problem with you going down the rabbit hole here with the Swede and knowing that that's really all you need at this price to say, hey, this is a guy that I know if he gets in the mix is probably going to stay in the mix.
100%. That's the key to me. It's 66 to 1, so it's not like you need to throw the house on it to get a good return. You can have a look at him across the board. Proven on the course means he's comfortable there. Will nailed it when he said, like, he makes an early bogey, he's not going to be worried. The other guys could already be annoyed if they fall 2 or 3 behind, 4 behind. He's going to be pretty comfortable that he can claw it back because he's done it before multiple times.
Norlander, by the way, for a top 20 is plus 350. That's pretty big.
There you go.
If we want to talk about best bets, there's another one if you want to look at a guy who's had great course history here. Will, your long shot, Andrew Novak, I'm not going to pretend like I know much about his game recently. He had a T7, though. Andrew Novak, your long shot.
Yeah, Wofford Terriers, stand up, Wofford Nation. Andrew Novak went to school, grew up in North Carolina. So when you get into these Southeast events, I do think there is some correlation for guys that are used to playing on these sort of surfaces and these style of course. And so he's someone that fits the bill. But as you said, there's 3 top 25s in his last 4 starts, including a T7 and a T20. And he's someone that we've seen pop up a couple different times in the PGA Tour over the last couple of years of maybe he shoots a 64 on Thursday and then he struggles to back it up on Friday or into Saturday. And this is the sort of event where I think, again, I'm leaning much more to guys that have some strength. Tee to green, he's 19th in strokes gained total, 20th in strokes gained approach. Better stats than you might think for someone that is still at his stage of growth as a PGA Tour card holder. But I think that he's someone, and this is an event where maybe you can turn what is 18 or 27 good holes into 54 or 72.
I really like what he's been doing this season in terms of just getting in the mix more often than not for guys of his level or status, if you want to put it that way. He's been getting there or thereabouts in a handful of tournaments, throwing his name up, getting experience. Now, look, he hasn't taken that and won a tournament, but he's been getting that experience each and every time so that when he does get there the next time, he's going to know what he needs to do. And he's a name that will not surprise me at all if he wins one of these random fall events just out of, somewhat out of nowhere. He could definitely do that.
I also need to admit this, getting into our winners. Ben, when I saw your winner and looked him up, I had no idea that Patrick Fishburn has been playing as good a golf as he's been playing lately. No idea.
playing out of his skin. In fact, of the entire, again, this is down the data hole, but not that far down. The last 5 starts, no one has gained more strokes in this field than Patrick Fishburn. He was obviously pretty decent in Napa before not being able to close it out. I think, again, he'll learn from that experience, but I think I've got it written down here. 3.163 strokes gained total over his last 5 starts.
Jeez. More
More than a stroke better than anyone else in this field over their last 5 starts. So I'm just banking the hot hand. Let's just go with the hot hand. He feels good. He's been playing well. I think he would have learnt from Napa. And let's see how he can go against this field at the Country Club of Jackson.
He's going to be a popular pick next week in Utah. I'll tell you that. Utah native, and given that recent form, even if he has a hiccup this week, I think there's enough to go off of, as you mentioned there, that top 3 finish at Napa a couple weeks ago. And so we'll see what he has in store for the home state next week. But it wouldn't, again, the hot hand theory definitely plays for an event like this and a course like this, where that game's going to travel.
I'm getting flashbacks of the PGA Championship and Benny Betts picking Xander Schauffele the week before, didn't like what he saw, didn't pick him the next week, and Xander won. Is that Fishburn this week? Will, your winner, Jhonattan Vegas, he's won this year.
He has. Give me a top 5 finish at this course. Granted, it was 7 or 8 years ago, but then also that recent victory at the 3M Open. And again, this is I'm going to go with my game plan from a handicap perspective is give me the tee to green specialists, and I'm going to hope that their putter heats up at the right time. And that's what we saw with Johnny Vegas in the Twin Cities a couple months ago, and that's what I'm hoping for this week on a course where this is only his 4th appearance. He did miss the cut 2 out of those previous 3 times, but the one time he did play the weekend, he had that T4 finish. So I like that sort of game plan. And again, he's a player there plus 3,300 that I know I can trust him to be able to deliver on Sunday. He's not going to be quite as shaky coming down the stretch as maybe some other players on the leaderboard. If it's someone like Andrew Novak that's vying for his first victory, or Patrick Fishburn, or whoever, there's a lot of guys in this mix that if they're within 2 shots of the lead going into the back 9 on Sunday, I'm not exactly sure how they're going to react, but I'm pretty confident I know what I'm going to get out of Jhonattan Vegas, a player that has multiple PGA Tour victories, has been playing at this level for a really long time, has some recent form to his credit, and even what he's done since leaving Minnesota has been solid. And again, he's got a T4 here before, and that's good enough for me.
I will say that if Johnny Vegas is 1 or 2 behind Fishburn to making the turn on Sunday, I will be a little bit
You're worried?
I will be looking over my shoulder for exactly what Will says. There is such a thing as knowing how to handle the stress of being in contention on a Sunday. It's something different. It's where the stats actually almost get thrown out the window. Now it comes down to, can you step up in the moment? We know Johnny Vegas loves the moment. He's always been a fun guy to watch in that situation. So I honestly, Will, now I hope he's nowhere near Patrick Fishburn on the back 9 on Sunday.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate that.
Will officially gets Ben worried.
And Chris, don't worry. I'm going to go Fishburn double this week and next, just to make sure that we have no issue with the Utah native. I'm a little worried when he gets there at his hometown. The expectation a little higher, so I want him to win this week before he gets there.
Fool me twice, shame on me. Okay, before we go, we're going to play a game of true and false with my winner. True or false, Nick Dunlap is the most talented player in this field.
False.
False.
Mackenzie Hughes?
I mean, listen, I'll probably take 3 or 4 guys at least, I think, over Nick Dunlap. Listen, he's done great stuff this year. He's a 2-time winner out of nowhere on the PGA Tour. But I need to see more. I need a larger sample size before I can speak to a macro level of how much talent he has versus some of the other guys.
I will say what really impressed me at the FedEx Century Championship in the playoffs was when he started to stumble on Sunday under the gun of being on the bubble, but was able to return to form mid-round and get himself through. That was pretty impressive. So that's one thing he went up a little level for me when I saw that live. We'll see what I think about going into 25. Let's see how he does this week. Like I think he's definitely a chance. He's one of those guys, if you're going to throw a buck here or there on some of the favourites, then he's one of the ones that you keep in the mix. So we'll see.
Man, that's a
I think the thing for me, Chris, when you showed that graphic there, is that 4-stretch run of first, miscut, 5th. And that's what we've seen early on out of Nick Dunlap, where he doesn't necessarily have the ability to pull it back and take a potential miscut and turn it into a T28, take a T28, turn it into a T12. The wins are remarkable, and being able to back that up at the Barracuda after getting that win at the American Express deserves a round of applause. But I think that if there's a weak spot in the Nick Dunlap handicap, that's where it is for me.
I just learned a lesson. I'm not playing true and false with you guys anymore because I will feel terrible about my picks in the future.
Don't worry, he'll win. He'll win.
You're the host.
Genius.
Look, you're creating your own games here. You have no one to blame but yourself here.
All right. Good night.